Region, a new meta, and a ton of new characters we need to talk about for the release of Nod-Kari. In this video, you will find general information of the new Nod-Kari mechanics, some useful tips on if you're planning on pulling Flins, as well as a little bit of a warning at the end of the video and some final thoughts. Everything will be timestamped for your convenience down below, so please click around, figure out where you need to go, and make the best use of your time. If you like the content I produce, please like, comment, subscribe, show your support because I plan on making more of these more detailed meta videos as time goes on. That all being said, not gonna waste any more of your time. Flins recently got revealed, and over the course of the past 4 days, I've had the luxury of testing the man out myself with the use of some clients that I cannot name for my own safety. And over the course of my testing, it has become very clear to me that Flins is essentially, and there's no mincing words here, very mid. He is not insanely overpowered, he is not insanely underpowered, he is not weak, he is just alright. But that doesn't mean the character is doomed on release. There are a lot of things that can happen in the future that'll make the character a little bit stronger as time goes on. But for now, we need to discuss some of the base kit mechanics that are important to know moving into Nod-Kari. Assuming a majority of you are going off of no information, here's how things work. Nod-Kari brings with it a new gimmick mechanic, which I will henceforth be referring to as the Moon State. If you don't know what gimmick mechanics are, think Night Soul from Natlin and the Blood Debt system from Fontaine. This is a two-tiered stacking system which will give your team additional buffs depending on the amount of Nod-Kari characters that are currently present in the team. In this way, it functions very similarly to elemental resonance systems, and this is a key mechanic throughout the majority of Nod-Kari's units. It is very important that you keep this in mind, not only because team comps from the region will be built around this element, but also because a majority of the artifact sets from the region receive stacking bonuses based off of this. For example, there will be a new supportive set, which, when 2 Nod-Kari units are put on the team, will buff the team's elemental mastery by 60 for 1 unit or 120 for 2 units, as well as increasing moon glare reaction damage by 10% for each different gleaming moon effect that party members have. For those of you who don't know, a gleaming moon effect is essentially what happens when a moon reaction is procced. Think of it like Night Soul blessing states and the effects that you get from something like Cinder City or Obsidian Codex. This is not something you're going to need to actively think about. It will mostly proc passively as long as you're performing your rotation properly. The DPS set works pretty similarly. When teammates trigger moonglare reactions, they will receive a stacking crit rate bonus from 15 to 30% when the party's moon sign is in an adjacent gleam or an ascendant gleam. All party members will also receive a damage increase by 10% for each gleaming moon in effect. Again, I don't want to bog you down with details, but before we continue, it's time to pay my editors. This time, we're sponsored by LD Shop. Look man, I play a lot of gacha games. I know you do too. Things get pretty expensive after a while, so it's nice to be able to get a little bit of a discount here and there, because at the end of the day, every cent saved is a cent earned. And by using LD Shop, you'll be saving a lot of cents. LD Shop offers up to a 20% discount on all in-game items. And if you want, you could save a little bit more money, with the link down below earning you up to an additional $50 off your next order. And because I'm not one to just throw you to the wolves and have you figured out for yourself, don't worry, I actually tested out the service myself. As you can see, we're currently in Genshin, as you can tell by my ugly filters that you all love to comment on so much. Gonna go on over to LD Shop, go to Genshin, get one of the 3 welcome packs, make sure you select the right server. If you don't, there's nothing you can do for you. Put in the ID, I just copy pasted mine directly from in-game, by the way, you can add me if you want to. And then top up. Alright, and now that the transaction's completed, we're just gonna wait in-game for a little bit and get our item. Okay, there it is, as soon as I alt-tab back into the game. 1, 2, 3. As you can all see, I got my 122 items pretty much immediately. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. So there you go. Save yourself some money. Use the link in the description. Really helps support the channel. That all being said, let's get back into the video. So we'll come back and touch on this later, but all you need to know is as long as you have 2 Nod-Kari units and you are playing the mechanics properly, this is something you won't even have to think about most of the time. Get it? Got it? Good. Now we can move on to talking about Flins himself. There isn't really a lot to talk about with his basic attack, is what it is, so we're going to skip right over to the elemental skill, Ancient Rite Arcane Light. Flins summons forth the ancient power concealed within his lamp and switches to his manifest flame form. This form has the following characteristics. You will receive an electro infusion and your auto attacks as well as your charge attacks, but you will lose the ability to perform plunging attacks. On top of that, his elemental skill will be replaced from an ability that enhances you to an ability that essentially does a little bitty burst of damage. Northern Spear Storm summons a flurry of spears in front of him, dealing AoE electro damage, and causes his elemental burst to change to a new special elemental burst called the Thunderous Symphony for the next 6 seconds. The base cooldown of the Northern Spear Storm lasts for 6 seconds and cannot be changed no matter what. It is worth noting that the scaling here is painfully average. At level 1, he has a 58.25% scaling, which maxes out at 104.85, which is roughly Zhao level of scaling, which is average for a spear user. His elemental burst is called Ancient Ritual Cometh to the Night. Flins releases the true power of his lamp, dealing AoE electro damage, and after a short delay, further increasing AoE electro damage that can be considered lunar charge damage. However, if the elemental skill Spear Storm was used beforehand, the elemental burst will be changed into the Thunderous Symphony, which consumes less elemental energy to release a special elemental burst, dealing a single instance of AoE electro damage considered to be lunar charge damage. This is considered a nascent glean, and if there are any thunderclouds nearby, Flins will deal additional instances of lunar charge damage in an AoE form. So for those of you not keeping up, you will use your elemental skill, go into an enhanced state like Tartaglia, at which point you will get a different elemental skill that can be used. Once the elemental skill is used, you will do a small burst of damage, and then change your elemental burst to a new variety that does more damage and costs less energy. You want to spam this elemental burst because it is what's going to be proccing the effects we stated previously in the video from your artifact sets. Of course, it can never be that simple because we also need to talk about passive skills. First, we'll discuss his Ascension 2 passive, Moon Sign Benediction. Whenever a party member triggers an electro charge reaction, it will instead be converted into a lunar charge reaction, and with every 100 attack that Flins had, you will increase the lunar charge damage base by 0.7% up to a maximum of 14%. Additionally, when Flins is in the party, the Moon Sign level will increase by 1. The Moon Sign level being the stacking bonus I told you about earlier on a tiered system based off your team. His A4 passive is called the Symphony of Winter. Flins will gain a corresponding buff effect based off the party's Moon Sign. Moon Sign Adjacent Gleam, lunar charge reactions will be triggered by Flins, dealing an additional 20% damage. What this is saying is, if you have 2 characters that increase your Moon Sign level, all of your reactions dealt by Flins will deal an additional 20% damage. So to recap, this is a character that goes into a stance with their skill. They will then use their skill again, then their ultimate, and then after that they will receive a stacking damage buff. They are a character that wants to make heavy use of lunar charge reactions, which brings up some problems that I have foreshadowed in the very beginning of this video. As you have probably realized, Flins as a character is a unit that wants to make heavy use of teammates in order to get the most out of his lunar charge reaction system. He wants a lot of elemental mastery and he wants a lot of attack in order to make proper use of his passive talents. For this reason, he will be very difficult to build, but you can alleviate the symptoms of this problem by building him with specific characters. These characters being Sucrose and Inef. And while Sucrose isn't that big a deal because the majority of the people who play this game likely already have her C6, Inefa is a little bit more of a strange case. Inefa as it currently stands is on banner right now, so if you're watching this video and you plan on pulling for Flins, I would recommend pulling for Inefa if you can still guarantee you will get Flins. That being said, if you do not manage to pull Inefa, you are going to see a very sizable damage loss on your team comps. The reason for this is because Inefa has a lot of base use in her kit that Flins really wants. For those who don't know what Inefa does, she is an attack and elemental mastery scaler that buffs your team with the use of her ultimate, as well as making it very easy for you to get a number of lunar charge reactions off with minimal effort, which is what Flins wants. In addition to that, Inefa allows him to basically permanently stay in his second tier of Moon Sign, which, as I stated at the beginning of this video, you're really going to want to keep up if you want to make the most of your damage. For those of you who are looking for a comparable comparison, think of this like a Scoffier and Skirk. Skirk as a character loses a pretty sizable amount of her damage if she's not slotted on a team with a Scoffier. And this is unfortunately a very similar thing we're seeing with Flins, and I don't really know how to feel about it, especially because it doesn't really look like the team comp damage is going to be worth it. As it currently stands, based off of day 1 calculations, we can see that Flins Flins plus Inefa plus Sucrose plus Almo at C6, his premium best in slot team, has an average damage per second of 113,000. Now to some of you, that might sound really impressive, but you need to keep in mind this is 2 premium characters and 2 high value C6s on the exact same team, and you are just barely breaking 100,000 damage. Now you can take Inefa off the team and replace it with a C6 Ison with Noblesse and Favonius, and you can see a pretty sizable damage increase of 115,000 for 4 seconds, which is nowhere near long enough to keep his rotation. So don't worry, if you don't have Inefa, you could use Ison if you wanted to, but I'm warning you now, it's not going to be very viable. For those of you looking for other alternatives, if for some reason Ison is currently on your team, you can try some of the followings: Flins, Inefa, Sucrose, Yelan, Mona, Sucrose, Inefa, Flins, Flins, Ison, Sucrose, Ino, Flins, Oron, Sucrose, Ino, or Flins, Kujo Sara, Sucrose, Ino. It is worth noting that pretty much every team that doesn't have either Ison or Inefa on it is not breaking 100,000 damage. And for those of you who want a reference as to what that is, that's basically day 1 release Arlecchino, 85,000 damage. Now to those of you who are thinking I'm out here just doom posting the character, I don't actually think this is that big of a deal. We're not playing Star Rail where every new character needs to be better than the next. Flins as it currently stands is solid. He is not bad, he is not weak, he is mid. He is just okay. And you don't need to really stress about it that much, because we also have to keep in mind that we are dealing with the start of a region effect, where at the beginning of every region, without fail, there's always going to be a unit that struggles. We saw this with Kanich and Mulani. Over the course of their region, they only got stronger and stronger as more options presented themselves to the team. Now, do I think this will happen with Flins? It's debatable, considering Inefa already exists and so does Alno, which basically make up his best use case team, so do keep that in mind, but there is a high likelihood that he will receive some buffs in the future. Which leads me into my final thoughts. I really like Flins. I like his design, I like his playstyle, I think he is easily the baddest badass to ever exist. But with that being said, I do think it's worth pointing out that Flins has a lot of problems baked into his kit. For starters, you're basically not going to make full use of the man unless you have some Nod-Kari units to support him. Even if you get the Nod-Kari units, there's no telling how much these other units are going to be wanted on other teams in the future. In addition to that, he has one of the most expensive teams in the game right now. You are essentially having to do the Skirk syndrome, where you are assembling the pieces of Exodia, and once you get them all, the reward isn't really worth it, which in lies the biggest problem. I don't mind if a character has a very high premium price tag slapped on it just for the sake of it, but what I do have a problem with is when you have this high price tag and the product reflected at the end of the road doesn't match the standards you have set previously. Flins feels like a character that was gutted in order to sell Inefa properly, and that really rubs me the wrong way. Am I still gonna pull him? Yeah, fuck yeah, I like him, he's a badass. But I do think it's worth pointing that out for those of you who are planning on pulling him in the future. So, final recap. If you plan on pulling for Flins, good, try to pull Inefa. If you don't have enough to get Inefa, screw it, get Flins, but be ready to fork over Ison for the team. Do not expect Mobwika or Skirk level DPS. He is just okay. He's mid. He will probably get power crept in the future, but it really doesn't matter. This is Genshin Impact. You can still 36 star with day 1 4 stars. That all being said, ladies and gentlemen, hope this video was helpful. If you liked it, like it. If you dislike it, dislike it. And if you really like me, go ahead and subscribe. See y'all next time. Stay safe and peace.